I'm doing the audio on my phone. Say hi to Michael. Say hi. Say hi to Michael. This is a slightly different setup than I've done before, but I've done before for this series. I was too comfortable. Okay. And I didn't want to move from my comfy spot, so we're here. Okay. And we're doing this. We're doing Virtuoso, Istp. Virtuosos are innovative and practical experimenters, masters of all kinds of tools. Introduction. I wanted to live the life, a different life. I didn't want to go to the same place every day and see the same people and do the same job. I wanted interesting challenges. Harrison Ford. People with the Istp personality type, virtuosos, love to explore with their hands and their eyes, touching and examining the world around them with an impressive diligence, a casual curiosity, and a healthy dose of skepticism. They are natural makers, moving from project to project, building the useful and the superfluous for the fun of it, and learning from the environment as they go. They find no greater joy than in getting their hands dirty, pulling things apart and putting them back together, leaving them just a little bit better than they were before. ISTPs prefer to approach problems directly, seeking straightforward solutions over convoluted troubleshooting methods. People with this personality type rely heavily on first-hand experience and trial and error as they execute their ideas and projects. And as they do so, they usually prefer to work at their own pace, on their own terms, and without unnecessary interruptions. This is not a type who is inclined to socialize beyond what is necessary as they try to accomplish their goals. In fact, ISTP personality types generally find regular socializing to be taxing. And when they do decide to get together with people, they will almost always choose smaller, more meaningful interactions over superficial networking. Direct and decisive. For all the mysteriousness heaped on them, with this type, what you see is what you get. Direct but reserved, calm but suddenly spontaneous, industrious but focused on their own priorities. People with the ISTP personality type can be a challenge to predict, even by their friends and loved ones. They can seem very steady for a while, but they tend to build up a store of impulsive energy that explodes without warning, taking their interests in bold new directions. ISTPs act spontaneously on a new interest, exploring its viability after they've shifted gears. Decisions made by ISTPs may largely stem from their rational nature and their sense of what feels practical for them at any given moment. But that doesn't mean that they don't get swept away by their passions from time to time. Once their flame is lit, they tend to commit their time and energy with an impressive intensity until another equally compelling, or perhaps more gratifying, opportunity arises. And when it does, people with this personality type have no qualms about walking away from projects or situations that seem unfruitful or drained of potential. One of the biggest issues that they are likely to face is that because they often act out of haste, they might rub people the wrong way sometimes. ISTPs are not the type to sugarcoat their opinions or feelings. They tend to have a very straightforward communication style that is often misinterpreted as bluntness or lack of sensitivity. But it is simply the way these genuine souls operate. ISTP personalities have no time for people-pleasing or unnecessary social niceties. With them, there is little need to question their motives. Defying the rules. ISTP personalities are truly a unique bunch. At their core, they are authentic individuals who march to the beat of their own drum rather than adhering to social norms and rules. Their opportunistic outlook and direct approach to life tend to create a rich tapestry of experiences and interactions for people with this personality type, some incredibly frustrating and others extremely gratifying. Guided by their knowledge and the evidence at their disposal, ISTPs navigate life by feel and inspiration, often stepping away from predefined routines to follow their instincts. They are unbound by convention, preferring to chart their own course in all that they do. In essence, people with the ISTP personality type live life freely on their own terms, valuing personal autonomy above most things. Weaving their way through social expectations, they still find a way to color outside the lines. Their journey might not align with broader norms, but therein lies the strength and beauty of their unique perspective. Finding an environment where they can coexist with people who understand their need for freedom, space, and unpredictability will give them many happy years. Moving on to strengths and weaknesses. ISTP weaknesses. Unapologetic. As easily as ISTPs go with the flow, people with this personality type can also ignore it entirely and move in another direction with little consideration for others' preferences. If someone tries to propose a different direction, ISTPs can become quite blunt in their irritation. Insensitive. ISTPs rely on logic, and even when they try to meet others halfway with empathy and emotional sensitivity, it rarely seems to come out quite right, if anything is even said at all. Private and reserved. This personality type is notoriously difficult to get to know. They keep their personal matters to themselves and often just prefer silence to small talk. Easily bored. ISTPs enjoy novelty, which makes them excellent tinkerers, but they are much less reliable when it comes to focusing on things as novelty wanes. Once something is understood, they tend to simply move on to something new and more interesting. Independent. While also listed as a strength, ISTP personalities' independence can be a challenge in their social relationships, including in romance. Having someone else's schedule, especially a social calendar, imposed on them is unlikely to sit well for long. Their tolerance can be quite low for having others take their time away from what they'd prefer to be doing. Overly skeptical. ISTP's generally skeptical outlook can help them avoid unfounded assumptions, but unchecked skepticism may lead them to dismiss more subjective truths or unquantifiable aspects of the human experience. It can also lead to missed opportunities. They may not take risks or explore unfamiliar concepts due to a lack of definitive proof. Similarly, excessive skepticism may also strain social relationships due to perceived negativity and a lack of trust. ISTP strengths. diligent and observant. People with the ISTP personality type, virtuosos, are usually up to their elbows in some project or another. As hands-on individuals, they love readily engaging with their environment and transforming their observations into practical solutions. Handy and resourceful. This personality type is very imaginative when it comes to practical things, mechanics, crafts, and skills. Novel ideas come easily to ISTPs, and they love using their hands to put them into action. Spontaneous. They are generally able to go with the flow and think on their feet. This flexibility comes with some unpredictability, but ISTPs are able to store their spontaneity for a rainy day, releasing their energy just when it's needed most. Direct and authentic. ISTPs value straightforward and honest communication. They speak their mind without sugarcoating, reflecting their authenticity. This directness often fosters clarity in their relationships and helps them advocate for their wants and needs. Independent. Very self-reliant individuals, ISTPs thrive on regularly undertaking tasks alone, which helps them foster their creativity along with strong problem-solving abilities. Grounded. ISTPs have the uncanny ability to stay rooted in the present moment. With a keen focus on what's happening now, this personality type is less likely to get swept up in hypothetical future scenarios or past regrets. Moving on to romantic relationships. Dating people with the ISTP personality type, virtuosos, is a tango, complex and interesting, with alternating detachment and genuine care, some frank conversation, and plenty of spontaneity and enjoyment of the moment. Nothing can be forced in ISTP relationships, but so long as they are given the space they need to be themselves, they will gladly enjoy the comforts of a steady partner. An independent heart. Early in dating, these individuals can be especially difficult to get to know. They live in the present, and they generally prefer partners who are also more focused on the practices of the present than the hypotheticals of the future or the feelings of the past. If a potential partner doesn't measure up, these personalities may simply walk away. They also need a great deal of personal space, both physically and mentally, and any attempts to control them or forcibly schedule their activities only heightens the risk of their departure. As their relationships progress, ISTP's partners tend to find that intimacy is one of the more accessible avenues to open emotional expression. It's not that they don't have feelings, they actually run quite deep and strong. They just conceal and protect those feelings, partly because they are unsure of how to deal with and express them, and partly because they tend to think people should deal with their emotional baggage privately. The subtle art of communication. People with the ISTP personality type often leave things unsaid that they think are mutually understood. Attempts to push understood arguments, even the relationships themselves, into open discussion in order to secure commitment, especially early on, are often met with something close to panic or disdain. Nothing is so acutely terrifying to them as knowing that there's no way out. Every day is a new day, and ISTPs review their obligations from moment to moment. If ISTPs are to be lifelong partners, it must happen as a natural progression of day-to-day decisions made on their own time. None of this should be taken too personally by their partners. It's just how ISTPs' minds work. People with this personality type live in the present, in a world of physical activities that engage the senses, and they just need to know that they have the freedom to be passionate about something one day and indifferent the next, without being grilled on when they're going to finish something or why they've suddenly changed their mind. That said, being a little more expressive and a little more comfortable with the idea of consistency and follow-through can go a long way in rounding out ISTP personalities. Moving on to friendships. When it comes to how people with the ISTP personality type, Virtuosos, navigate their friendships, their social playbooks might seem a little quirky compared to the norm. ISTPs cherish alone time and personal autonomy much more than the average person does. Consequently, when they do decide to participate in some mingling, they can be very selective about who they engage with. They're like a well-kept secret. Not everyone gets the privilege of being their friend. A lot of this selectivity comes down to them simply not wanting to be bound to any particular person or activity. Forcing them to constantly commit to scheduled activities is probably the quickest way to end a friendship with someone with the ISTP personality type. As long as everyone keeps things relaxed and flexible, though, their friendship can be rich and rewarding. ISTP personalities live in the present, enjoying whatever life brings, and feel no real obligation to shift course on account of others' plans. If friends don't want to do what ISTPs are doing, then they are free to go do their own thing, and they'll hang out some other time. Sometimes their shifts in attitude can catch their friends flat-footed, but they are generally very direct about how they do and don't want to spend their time. People with this personality type are talented when it comes to using their abilities, and they usually enjoy a little competition. This makes their hobbies, especially the more hands-on activities, especially enjoyable with a little company, and these are usually the basis for their friendships. They are also thoughtful, rational people. Being fairly creative individuals themselves, they often enjoy putting a new spin on their interests with people who they feel close to. But in the end, the point of sharing those ideas needs to be to take action. Musing and dreaming are well and good, but talk is cheap, and discussions on abstract or distant subjects can only hold ISTP's attention for so long before they decide to shift their focus to something they can do. The surprising charm of being yourself. People with the ISTP personality type are unusually popular, almost in spite of themselves. Their interesting hobbies are sharply pragmatic. Their interesting hobbies and sharply pragmatic nature are attractive to a remarkably broad range of people. It's getting beneath the surface to become their true friend that is the real challenge. They may have a lot of goodwill and friendly faces to call on, but only a few people who they truly feel understand them. Moving on to parenthood. When it comes to parenting, people with the ISTP personality type, virtuosos, give their children plenty of freedom and opportunity to do what they want, within sensible limits, of course. They generally feel that kids should be able to express themselves, even if it disturbs others in the process. It's a big world out there. From the point of view of ISTPs, it's meant to be explored and experienced without anyone trying to exert too much control over what other people can and can't do, even if they're kids. While often permissive, open-minded, and flexible, ISTP personalities still expect their children to use their freedom wisely. Nothing would be quite as perplexing to these parents as their children using that freedom to sit inside and watch television all day. The world is your oyster. Early in life, this attitude is tremendously beneficial for their children. At this age, every little thing is a miracle to be explored with every sense. Blocks don't just have distinct colors and shapes, but smells and tastes too. And this sort of sensory exploration is right up ISTP personality's alley. As their children develop their motor skills, ISTPs are happy to stack those blocks right along with them. And as their children grow and acquire more complex abilities, ISTPs find great joy in showing them how to use real tools to build real things. If these personalities' growing children share their basic qualities of spontaneity and passion for hands-on activities, they are happy to accompany them on just about any adventure. None of this is anything that gets forced on their children, though. ISTPs see little need in imparting their principles and interests on their children, instead just enjoying that their children enjoy doing things. Of course, there's always a balance to be found. Ensuring that their children are responsible enough to not do anything life-changingly reckless in their teenage years can be a challenge for parents of this type. Where parents with the ISTP personality type struggle most, as with other relationships, is in emotional bonding. Emotional control is something that children learn and adapt to over years, and comparatively, unemotional ISTPs are often left at a loss for what to do in the meantime. It takes a great deal of conscious effort on their part to be able to provide the sort of emotional understanding and support that their children need. Moving on to career paths. People with the ISTP personality type, virtuosos, are probably the hardest to pin down in many aspects of life, but especially in their career. They thrive on diversity and unpredictability, on wondering what's next every morning. This makes them one of the most mysterious personality types, as well as one of the most versatile in the professional world. ISTP personalities are unique in that they have next to no time or patience when it comes to ideas or projects that cannot be applied sensibly in real time. They are born problem solvers with an unwavering focus on practical solutions. No other type is quite as fascinated by how things work, how tools can be used, and how facts can be put together to create immediate and satisfying results. Their combination of curiosity and hands-on vigor makes people with the ISTP personality type excellent mechanics, equipment operators, data analysts, and forensic scientists, though they certainly aren't limited to such professions. Abstract theory and purely academic work that will never see the light of real use rarely hold any interest for ISTPs. Practical is the word of the day. But it's not the practicality of routine administration that ISTP personalities crave. They need work that holds their interests and gives them freedom. Highly structured environments leave these individuals bored and tired. Jobs that give them the space to work independently and according to their own timeline, and that do not require too much schmoozing or public speaking, are where they tend to thrive. Because they are usually firmly rooted in the present, ISTPs also tend to have a knack for crisis response positions, such as firefighters, paramedics, detectives, and pilots. Perhaps most important to ISTP personalities, though, is the feeling that they aren't stuck. The freedom to wander, the freedom to declare their own schedule, their own responsibilities, their own environments. Nearly every other consideration pales in comparison to the need to avoid inflexible commitments and stodgy colleagues. This need for freedom can be a significant hurdle to overcome in traditional employment opportunities and might cause them to consider entrepreneurship as an alternative option. Embracing the unpredictable. Nearly any creative or constructive skill or interest can be offered on a freelance basis or on a business owner's own terms, be it blogging, systems analysis, athletics, or driving. People with the ISTP personality type may need to work on their less developed long-term planning abilities and preference for rapid results in order to make this path work, but livelihoods can be made selling bits and crafts in their free time. It's also possible to find more traditional work to satisfy these needs, so long as they are able to maintain their autonomy in one way or another. ISTP personalities have a natural skill with troubleshooting and a results-oriented focus. They understand that risk often leads to reward, and as long as they can use that understanding with maturity, they are highly desirable in any dynamic field or environment. Moving on to workplace habits. When it comes to the workplace, people with the ISTP personality type, virtuosos, don't typically seek jobs that will take them too far out of their comfort zone, though what's within their comfort zone can have a surprising range, and they prefer to work with as little social interaction as possible. But with some breathing room and a hands-on problem to solve, ISTPs can be some of the most productive people around. As with anyone, forcing people with this personality type into a mold that doesn't fit just doesn't work. Recognizing their unique perspective and gifts can lead to extraordinary results. ISTP subordinates. As subordinates, what ISTP personalities crave most is a little wiggle room. They are happy to stick around with surprising loyalty as long as their employers and their managers don't try to force them to commit to anything that can't be undone the next day. Strict rules, guidelines, and formal agreements make them feel cramped and bored. If their habits or methods come under criticism or are forced to change, they can also be surprisingly mulish. Something that's likely to make their day is a random, manageable list of things that need to be fixed or dealt with. ISTP personalities have a talent for conserving their energy for just such an occasion and can tackle such a laundry list with efficiency and ease. ISTP colleagues. If you're expecting people with the ISTP personality type to be the life of the party or the ones organizing social gatherings at work, you'll be disappointed. Reserved, but often bold, these individuals need space as they work. They generally prefer to keep to themselves and socialize only when necessary. That said, from time to time they enjoy peeking in on others' work to see if there's anything interesting going on. ISTP personalities are often much more liked by their colleagues than they would expect, despite the fact that they are not naturally emotional or empathetic, or maybe because of this. However, they can still run into problems when their blunt way of communicating leads to misunderstandings or hurt feelings. Taking them at face value goes a long way. ISTP managers. ISTP managers treat their subordinates as they'd like to be treated, with minimal talking and fairly loose boundaries. People with this personality type aren't big on chattiness or emotional expression, and more sensitive types may see them as cold and distant. Effusive praise and backslapping just isn't in their nature. In fact, there isn't likely to be a lot of feedback at all from ISTP managers, good or bad. But when problems do arise, they are great listeners who devise practical, fair, and impartial solutions. Okay. That was Virtuoso. ISTP.